happened after what we covered, but it involves someone who would have experienced everything that we've been looking at. And it's taking an idea also that I mentioned last week and kind of maybe building upon that idea. And I talked about last week this desire that we all have to leave something for those who come after us. And I think that there's something inside of all of us where we want to leave something after we're gone. And I think of that with obviously the important things, and we'll talk about the important things in this message, but before we do, let's talk about one of the stupid things we like to leave to people. And I was thinking for my son Jack, that what I want for him is I want him to love Jesus, love Nebraska football, and be a good person, probably in that order. And it's there. It's like one of those things. Like I'm hopeful that he'll be able to do that. And it's important. And I think for that's something that was important for my dad. Like my dad left Nebraska football to me, and I think that when my dad left it to me though, it was a lot easier than when I left it to Jack. Okay, that when I was in second grade, Nebraska went on a streak of either playing in or winning the national championship like 6 out of 7 years, or 5 out of 6. It was something stupid. Real easy to be a fan when that's going on, okay? For Jack, in his lifetime, the greatest accomplishment Nebraska football has is winning the Pinstripe Mowers Bad Boy Bowl. Little different there. And it's kind of funny, too, because when people are like, when they find out I'm a Nebraska fan, they always ask this question: are you from there? You know why they ask that? Because that's the only reason why you would be a Nebraska fan. And poor Jack, at least I can say yes, like I lived there for a minute. He can't, and so it's really sadistic what I'm doing, okay? That's what I want you to know. But thinking in terms of like the things that actually really matter that we leave to the generations that come after us, there's nothing more important that we could leave to those who come after us than faith. It's the greatest gift that we can give them. And I want to look at an example in our text for someone who does something really, really difficult, but God blesses it by blessing those who come after him. But to kind of bring us to the text, I want to do a little bit of a recap. And I'm going to start 400 years before we get to our text. And 400 years before we get to our text, there was no people of Israel, okay? But there was a man named Abraham. And 400 years before our text, God shows up to Abraham, and he promises 2 things to Abraham. He says, I'm gonna make you into a large group of people, as numerous as the stars in the sky, the sand on the seashore. And not only that, but I'm also this land that you are currently in, that someday your inhabitants, those people that I said are going to be yours, that they will possess this land that you stand on. 400 years pass, and over the course of 400 years, basically what happens is that the first part of the promise is fulfilled. That the people of Israel, Abraham's descendants, they become a very large nation. So large, actually, that the place where they're currently occupying, the land of Egypt, that they're like, these people are getting too big, let's make them slaves. And so that's what ends up happening. And so you've got this promise that was made 400 years earlier that God's going to make them into a large people and give them land. And then what ends up happening is they're a large people, but they don't have land. Not only do they not have land, but they're slaves. And so these people, they cry out to God. And God supernaturally ends up delivering them from slavery by 10 supernatural plagues. They end up crossing the Red Sea on dry ground, and God destroys their oppressors in the sea. They end up heading to, and then after all that happens, they head to the land that God has promised to Abraham. The second part of the promise that was made 400 years earlier, they are getting ready to experience. They are a large people, and now they're getting ready to have this great land. And that's where we'll pick up this morning. And so they're here at the land. They're getting ready to take the land that God has promised them. But before they do, what Moses does is he's like, I'm going to send out 12 spies into the land, because if we're going to take it, we got to know how. And that's where we'll pick up this morning in Numbers chapter 13, verse 25. And it says this. This is the end of 40 days. they returned from spying out the land, the people who were spying out the land that God promised to Abraham. And they came to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. And they brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told them, we came to this land which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, not literal, okay? The teaching team's like, make sure they know that it's not literal. So you know it's not literal. And this is its fruit, okay? Just stopping right there. I want you to, okay, they're like, this is the fruit. When is the last time you saw fruit and you were like, someone needs to see this? You know what I mean? My son, Jack, recently saw a grape, and it was so significant that he took a picture of it, and I'd like you all to see it. Okay, this is the grape. Isn't that's a beautiful grape, right? Yeah, right? He had no idea that when he sent me this, I was going to show it to all of you, but it was such a significant thing. He's like, this is the grape. But they weren't showing the fruit off because it was a weird-looking grape, but they were showing the fruit off because they're like, it is so large that this is fruit that we'll be able to eat on for a long time. It's so delicious. It's unlike anything we've ever seen before. But what we see as the text goes forward is that the fruit isn't the only thing that's impressive. Look at this in verse 28. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the Negeb. The Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites dwell in the hill country. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the Jordan. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are able to overcome it. Then the men who had gone up with him said, we're not able to go against the people, for they are stronger than we are. So they brought to the people of Israel a bad report of the land that they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone to spy it out is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people we saw there are in it of great height. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim. And we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, so we seemed to them. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Hoosiers before, okay? It's probably a perfect movie. Basically, the premise of the movie is that you have this small town in Indiana who has a basketball team. And they end up going all the way to the state championship game. And really the whole point of the movie is that this small town that no one really believes in, they've got these farm boys who are really good at basketball, and they end up playing in a state championship game. Just imagine, okay, if you've seen the movie, it's going to flood. That's what this is. It's about a flood is what that's about. We're on the high ground. It isn't going to flood, okay? It's all right, man. That's whatever. It's just going to keep going, isn't it? But this would be like them going and they're saying, hey, they see the people they're getting ready to play, and they're like, hey, let's not play the game. Looking at these dudes, they're much stronger, they're more athletic, they're faster than we are. There's no way that we would stand a chance against them. Like if that was the premise of the movie, that would be a very ridiculous movie. Because the whole point of the movie is building towards that moment. Now, you think of Israel, okay? Even more so Israel. For 400 years. Is that the tornado? Oh. I'm really glad that we're doing the flood. I thought it was a flood. Good thing we're not recording that. So what do?
We're watching it right now. It's not close to this side of town, but we're watching it. We have security watching.
So I just keep talking, and that's what's going to happen here?
Yeah, I think you can. I think you can keep going.
So just.
Yeah. Yeah. We're watching. Happy Father's Day.
Gosh.
Enjoy your vacation next week.
Well, I saw someone point up. You pointed up, and I was like, oh, something's going on. Okay, so So we're just going to go for it.
I think, yeah.
Is what we're going to do.
Keep going for it, and we'll interrupt if we need to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, this is so weird. Like, you guys think you feel uncomfortable. Put yourself in my shoes right now, okay? Like, I'm just going to preach through a tornado warning is what's going to, is it, that's what's going to, so, okay, so. We're asking, this is it. There's a sign, a wonder. I mean, all this stuff's going on. Man, okay, this is so weird. Okay.
Yep.
Hey, Kim, here's what we're going to do, okay? So we need a sign if we got to go, all right? So if we got to go, you're just going to interrupt me, okay?
Yep.
Where are we going to go? We'll just go in the hallway. Okay.
Yeah. We'll interrupt if we need to. But you were right after Numbers 13.
Oh, I know where I'm at. It's okay. I got
cool.
it. Okay, so we'll go back to this. This is so weird. All right. All right, so we're going to talk about leaving a legacy of faith. Okay, so this is what, so Caleb, he comes to this place where really he's these people who say no to the land. Like literally we're talking about 400 years of waiting on God's promise to be fulfilled. And their response to 400 years of waiting is they get to this land and they say, no, we're not going to walk in it. And I think that we have to realize as we think about these 10 spies that so much more is happening here than them just being scared. They're literally looking at the promise of God and saying no. Then you look at Caleb, though. And what Caleb does here is so significant that he is able, outnumbered 10-2. And he's able to say, no, I trust that God ultimately knows what he's doing. That I trust that even though this is significant and even though this is difficult, I am going to be able to walk in the promise that God has for me. And because of that, God responds to Caleb in this way. And you see this here in Numbers 14, and it says this. The Lord's speaking, and he says this. He says, but as truly as I live, and all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord. None of the men who have seen my glory and my signs that I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have yet put me to the test these 10 times, and have not obeyed my voice, shall see the land that I swore to give to their fathers. And none of those who despised me shall see it. But my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit and has followed me fully, I will bring into the land which he went, and his descendants shall possess it. You think of Caleb here, and not only does Caleb himself get blessed because of his faith, but his descendants, those who come after him, that they're also blessed because of his faith. And as we think about us, as we want to follow Jesus, don't we want to follow Jesus in a way that not only impacts our world, but also impacts the world of those who come after us? Now, something about Caleb that's really interesting too is that Caleb, he wasn't fully an Israelite. That you see this in actually when the book of Numbers looks back on Caleb, and it says this in Numbers 32, talking about Caleb. It says, Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite. That it says that he's a descendant of the Kenizzites. And like that is not nothing. That during that day, you tended to follow the gods of your ancestors. And yet here you have Caleb go a different way. He's like, no, I'm going to follow the one true God. And because Caleb followed the one true God, that his entire family, like his decision made his family part of God's people. So one of the interesting things with Caleb is that what most scholars believe is they believe that he ends up being grafted into the tribe of Judah, which is the same tribe where Jesus comes. And it's all because he fully followed the Lord. And so for us, what we have to think is okay, God has called us to leave the same type of legacy that would follow those who come after us. And so as I talk about a legacy of faith, I want us to think about it along three fronts, okay? One, I think the most obvious way as we think of leaving a legacy is thinking about your family. It's thinking about your kids, your grandkids, your nieces and nephews, those people who are part connected to you in this way, that when they think about you, the first thing that should come to mind is how much you love Jesus. That there is nothing that you will give them that is more important than that. And even as I think about it, I think about my great-grandmother, and I only met her one time. My family, we were going to the beach one summer, and we stopped at her house on the way there, and we stayed the night. And I think, from my recollection, she's only interacted with me one time. And the only thing that I remember about her was that before we went to bed, she had all of us circle up and pray. And I think there was some sense in her life where she's like, I get one shot at the family from Missouri, and so I'm going to make the most of it. And I think that for us, too, we have to think, when people think about me, that's the first thing that I want them to know. And it doesn't just work, too, maybe if you don't have descendants in the typical sense of the word, but your faith should follow you everywhere you go. That it should follow you at your work. That it should follow you when you go to school. That it should follow you as you interact with people in this world. That your faith should be the thing that comes to mind when people think about you. Because really, that is the most important legacy that we can live, or that we can leave. Even thinking about what you do here. You're crazy if you don't think that the people who gave last week to serve at Summer Block Party didn't leave a legacy for those who would come after them. That the work that they did helped children know Jesus better, and the hope would be that they would continue to know him for generations to come. That what we have to think in terms of what is it that what I'm doing right now that will last long after I'm gone. And hear me, I know that it's Father's Day, but this isn't just for dads. That this is for everyone. That all of us need to carry this weight that is, what am I doing for those who come after me? So I want to give you three thoughts this morning about leaving a legacy of faith. And the first one is this, is that leaving a legacy of faith has challenges. That there are challenges associated with leaving a legacy of faith. I think of Caleb. Dude, his legacy of faith started with him going against the crowd. That his legacy of faith, it started with him being outnumbered 10-2. Joshua was also with him, but it doesn't say that in the text. He was outnumbered. And I would just say that, like, the 10 guys that said, there's no way in the world that we can do that. That those 10 guys were not like people who were slouches. They were the guys that when Moses is like, hey, we're going to take the land, he's like, I want these guys to be the spies. And Caleb, he had the gumption to be able to look at all of them who said no and say, no, I think that we can. And I just imagine, like, that probably didn't go well with him when those dudes went back to camp. That when they went back to the people, like, can you believe Caleb? Dude's crazy. And so he had to deal with that. And then not only that, but okay, so God's like, hey, you're going to possess the land. Even though he gets to possess the land. I mean, he doesn't just possess it. That in order for him to possess the land, that he has to go to war. Meaning, he has to fight. Meaning he has to fight against people who are bigger and stronger than him. Meaning that he's going to have to face his fears. Meaning that there are people who he loves who are probably going to die. That all of this happens before he's able to leave a legacy of faith. And the same works with us. That just because you say, hey, I want my faith to be something that goes after me, just because that's something you want, doesn't mean that it's just going to happen. That as you live to follow Jesus, there will be moments where temptation will creep in and try to get you to do something else. That as you live to follow Jesus, there will be moments where people will see the way that you follow Jesus, and they'll stand opposed to you. They'll make fun of you. They'll mock you. They'll say, surely that's not how you're supposed to do it. That as you live to follow Jesus, there will be moments in your life where you will experience incredible victory, and you'll think that it's over, but then that thing will creep back in and you have to continue to fight. That the thing about the life of faith that leaves a legacy is that it's one that is not absent of challenges. And even as I think about like this text in particular, okay, God told them that was going to happen. That in Deuteronomy chapter 7, God talks to the people before they get ready to go inhabit the land. And look at what he says to them. He says this in Deuteronomy chapter 7. He says, when the Lord your God brings you into the land you are entering to take possession of it, and clears away many nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations more numerous and mightier than you. Like God told them what was going to happen. And either they didn't believe it, or they forgot, or they thought it must not have been that serious. But either way, he warned them. And then they experienced the warning, and they were still surprised. And here's the thing for us, God warns us too. Jesus says this in John chapter 16. He says, in this world, you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. That what Jesus is saying is he's saying that, yeah, life is there are going to be moments as you follow me that are going to be hard. That there are going to be moments in your life when you are going to want to serve me, and there's going to be a challenge that's going to come before you. And he's saying, in that moment, don't focus on the challenge, focus on the fact that I have overcome the world. And here's why that's so important, that if we never think there are going to be challenges, if we think that walking with God is always going to just be easy, then the first time something gets in our way, what we're going to do is we're going to flee. But if we go into it with clear eyes, we're going to know that, hey, this might happen, but I know that God is enough to see me through. So we see the legacy of faith, that walking in that has challenges. The second thing we see is this, is we see that leaving a legacy of faith that remembers what God has done and what God will do. Two things can be true at the same time, that you can experience victory and you can experience challenge. You can experience them both at the same time. That here you have this situation here with the spies. And what you see with these spies is that there was part of what they were doing that was unable to call upon the past victories that they'd already experienced in Egypt. And as God, as he calls them out, this is part of what he brings up. Look at this here in Numbers 14. God's speaking, and he says, but as truly as I live, and all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord. None of the men who have seen my glory and my signs that I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and have yet put me to the test these 10 times and have not obeyed my voice. That what he's doing is he's saying, how is it that they experienced all of these plagues and it didn't give them more confidence in me? I mean, right now, we've literally been walking through the plagues. So we're on plague 8. Next week, we're going to look at plague 9. We've covered things like locusts and hail, and the Nile turned into blood and stuff with the livestock. And all of those things were meant to reveal who God was and also to reveal that you can trust him. And even in spite of all of that, when they're faced with a challenge, they still struggle to trust him. It also mentions the wilderness, and what happened in the wilderness was after they left and they were able to cross the Red Sea, that God literally led them by a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. And what the plagues and the wilderness were meant to teach these people was two very simple things. That the plagues were meant to teach the people that God will fight for you. I mean, think about it. They cried out to God, and as they cried out to God, God fought for them on their behalf. And what the wilderness was meant to teach them is the wilderness was meant to teach them that God will take care of you. And as these spies, as they go into the land, both of those things, they forget. Both of those things they're unable to hold on to. And God's like, I did all of this so that you would know that you could trust me. And here's the crazy thing about it all, okay? That it's been 15 months since the plagues. I can completely understand how maybe you and I might have a hard time calling on confidence when we see like the plague of the hail. But man, 15 months ago, they experienced that. And even though they experienced that 15 months ago, they can't call upon it to believe that God's going to help them in the moment. And here's what I would assume. I would assume that all of us probably have situations in our past where we can look back on the faithfulness of God and think of times where he's come through for us. And I would just say that those moments, they're not accidental. And they're not just for that moment, but they're also for the moments that we are going to experience. And that what we should do when we're walking through something difficult is we should remind ourselves of God's faithfulness in the past so that we might have confidence in the present. But as you think of Caleb, he wasn't just calling on the faithfulness of God in the past, he was also trusting what God was going to do in the future. He was trusting the fact that God is going to help us fight, that God is going to go before us. And for us, some of what we have to do too as we think about his faithfulness is we have to think about God's faithfulness in the future as well for us. And that can work a lot of ways, but we've got to be confident that God will continue to be faithful. So what does that mean? Well, one, trusting that God will continue to be faithful, it trusts that God will answer every prayer we pray. And I mean, here's the deal. He'll answer every prayer we pray, but what we have to realize is that yes is an answer, but no is too. And so is wait. The part of what faith does, according to Tim Keller, is faith trusts that God, that he will answer every prayer the way we would answer it too if we had all of the information that he had. That's one of the ways we lean into God's future faithfulness. Faith also trusts that God works all things for the good of those who love him. So as you walk through circumstances that you would rather avoid, that you would rather hate, that part of being a person of faith, it's able to trust that God is working that circumstance for my good, even though I might not be able to see how he's doing it. Let me see this last part of leaving a legacy of faith, and it's that leaving a legacy of faith is worth it. That leaving a legacy of faith, that it's worth it. You know, I really do love Caleb's story. And it's nuts. And maybe someday we'll cover all of it, but it's basically Caleb, he's this guy, and he ends up fighting until he's 85 years old, which is just crazy to think about. Then I found out that Caleb's name, it means dog, okay? And it's like, dude, it ain't D-O-G, you know, it's D-A-W-G, you know what I mean? Like, Caleb's got some dog in him. And as I think about, like, Caleb, though, man, his story, as it ends with him in the land that God promised to the people. I just kind of imagine Caleb sitting there looking at it, seeing his descendants in the land, inhabiting it. And I would just imagine that as he's looking, his feeling was, gosh, this was worth it. Thinks back to the time where he trusted God when the other 10 spies didn't, and he probably thought, man, I'm really glad that I trusted God for this moment. I imagine probably that Caleb probably looked back on all the battles that he literally had to fight, and as he's looking at his descendants, he's thinking, this is worth it. And here's the thing, the same will happen with us. That as we walk with Jesus and we leave a legacy of faith that lasts long after us and also lasts for our descendants, that in that moment where we experience the fulfillment of the promise, that we'll look back and we'll think it was all worth it too. We'll think every sacrifice was worth it. Every frustration that I had to push through, it was worth it. Every time I didn't understand why, but I did it anyways, that it was worth it. Because walking with him is always worth it. Paul says as much, talking about heaven, but it's important for us to consider as we think about this legacy. And he says, for this light and momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. For as we look, not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. And we have to realize that this moment that he's talking about with us being with him forever, that this moment is only ours because of Jesus. Talk about how the life of faith has its challenges. I can tell you this, that no one ever experienced challenges like Jesus. That as we talk about how the life of faith trusts the past and trusts the future, I can tell you this, that no one did that more than Jesus. And here's the beauty of Jesus, is that he did it for you. That he endured it all so that you could leave a legacy of faith. That everything that we talked about this morning, that it's only possible because of him. And so for all of us, as we think, okay, I want to leave a legacy of faith, we have to realize that it starts with Jesus and it's only possible because of Jesus. Let's pray. God, we love you. And God, we thank you for who you are. We thank you for what you do. We thank you, God, that even in the weirdest moments, we know that you're right here and that you speak to us. You're bigger than any challenge. And so even like right now in this moment, you're bigger than any challenge. And so God, I just want to pray in the midst of everything that's happening that you would help us all to honestly evaluate our soul. There's no legacy of faith if there's no faith. And so I just pray that even in this moment that you would help us all to look at where we are and ask the question, am I trusting Jesus? Is he my Savior? Is he my hope? And if he's not, I pray that you would help us respond in this moment by putting our trust in him. By making him the Lord and the leader of our lives, and that you would help us to walk with him. And then I pray for all of us as we walk by faith that we would leave a legacy of faith. That those who come after us, God, that they would follow Jesus. That the people we interact with, that we would live in a way that would make you incredibly attractive so that they would want what we have. Jesus, we love you and we thank you. It's in your name. Amen. Love you guys.
Thank you so much for watching us today. If you'd like to know more about what's going on here at New Life Church, you can go to our website, nlspringfield.com, and check out everything that's coming up. Also, if you'd like to be part of what God is doing here at New Life by giving, you can do so by going to giving.nlspringfield.com. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.